Hello, and welcome to the Joyful Rebels podcast, where rebellion meets wellness. We've got Claire and Donna Thomas here, your mother daughter duo, and we're here to bring you our insight, some science, and maybe share some laughs in this, our pursuit of finding more peace, joy, and balance in our physical and mental health. Thank you for listening today, for joining us as we discuss some practical tips to empower you on your journey to living your best life. And I just want to start off with saying I love that we have that wording in the intro where rebellion meets wellness
Mm,
because, I think that's so important. And we'll definitely talk about today. And mom, you've said this before, you'll say it again, but, we want to make aging joyful. We want to be curious. And man, if that's not counterculture and rebellious, I don't know what is.
mm,
But
true.
today, our topic is going to be part one of a two-parter talking about diet culture. And we have discussed diet culture a bit before, but it's something that I feel like, especially as women, has shown up throughout our lives. And it's something that is worth digging into. It's definitely worth digging into. And I'm going to start off by just giving us some basic definitions and ways that it does show up in our life. So as you're listening, you're just kind of thinking, like, okay, um, I've noticed this before, or I haven't really thought about this. Because remember, at Joyful Rebels, some topics are like top of mind, like, ding, yes, I think about this all the time. Some maybe are not, but that doesn't mean they're not worth, taking a closer look. And then, Mom, you're going to share, as happens so often to us, we think about a topic and then it shows up in a million places, like,
Yep.
hello, awareness light. So you'll share how it's showing up for you. And then again, as you're listening, we want you to be kind of examining where you sit with this topic. And so when we say diet culture, what we actually mean is this idea that there's these social and societal expectations to look a certain way, to eat a certain way, that this idea that we are better or more worthy if our bodies are a certain way. And while that may sound pretty stark and harsh, it shows up in a lot of different ways in our life. And some are obvious and some are not so obvious. They're these like insidious lurkers that can be having an effect on us if we're not aware of them. And so,
Mhm.
again, another reason that we like to zoom in. And so, one of the ways that this shows up, and mom, I know you're gonna delve into this, is the fitness industry in general. Um, how the fitness industry has kind of been this rebranding of diet culture. Like we're doing this to be healthy. Weight loss should be a big goal, but this can be at the expense of like overlooking your overall health or even your enjoyment of the movement. And so, mom, I know you're going to dig into that because you've got, just all that experience in the group fitness space. But I mean, it's also just showing up in the media, right?
Yeah.
And we can think about it in terms of social media. We said this before when we talked about the harm in comparisons. You're looking at a curated feed of someone's highlight reels, and oftentimes what we're seeing is social media that's celebrating these thin bodies, these really flexible thin bodies if you're in the yoga space.
Mhm.
Or you might even see like promoting dieting. I will say we were at a restaurant and they had an advertisement come on one of the TVs. It was like a sports bar, so there were a lot of TVs. And it was one of these like I don't even know what it was. It was something to like freeze away your fat. And we're watching it from kind of across and the kids are watching it. I've got two daughters, 10 and 9. And it was like showing, you could just see even from far away without hearing it, just a really sad person in a bigger body. And then they get this like it shows this like almost cartoon depiction of this thing to remove their fat. And then all of a sudden it's like clearly a different person in a smaller body and they're happy and they're beaming and just the messaging there. And my 9-year-old's like, what is that? Like, what? And I was like, Honestly, I don't know. But I mean, even when it's not that stark, we're seeing it in what's traditionally and most commonly represented, even in shows that we watch. I mean, I know we celebrate diversity when there is a diverse cast. There's some Disney shows that are great. They have people in smaller bodies, in larger bodies, all different races, people with different disabilities. But it's like, that's cool. We point it out because it's so not the norm.
Yeah.
So I think, what we're seeing most of the time is perpetuating this potential of this diet culture. Um, we know that we see all this product marketing, right? And again, I just had this conversation with my kids this morning. they're going to tell us, oh, there's something wrong with you so that they can sell us a way to fix it. And you could say this about, probably a lot of aspects of the
Yeah.
wellness industry, the beauty industry. And, it kind of it makes my heart hurt when I think about it, especially when I now think about it in terms of what my kids see. But that's what we're being fed since we're young. Like, if you don't fit this into this little box of what we're saying is how you should look, then you have a problem and you need to fix it. And that's going to be it can be haunting or chasing us through our life. And, maybe you're listening to this and you don't think it was very pervasive. But I think, again, for many women, it is.
Hmm.
Even with social norms, okay, we have events centered around food, and people say, oh, it's my cheat day. Or, Mom, we were just talking about this. If you can't eat certain things because it's bad, right? If people are saying that, so and that's just commonplace. That can just be in conversations we have with colleagues, coworkers, friends. Just that the fact that this language has just been so normalized and how we talk about things like food. And then there's even some bigger institutional ways that diet culture has shown up. Um, Medical professionals really focus on weight being a health factor more so
Hmm.
than it truly is. BMI is BS. If you didn't know, I can post a link to an
Hmm.
article about that because it's kind of complex, but it is not this great metric of health that we are
Mm-mm.
sometimes led to believe. And there's a lot of stigmatization of individuals who are in larger bodies. Um, uh, just pervasive throughout our culture. So this diet culture is showing up really whatever size you are, you're getting exposed to the messaging, and you may have even greater impacts depending on if you are in a bigger body. So, what we want to do again at Joyful Rebels is just have this conversation because it can maybe feel like a sensitive or a touchy topic, but that's part of our rebellion here is that we're going to shine a light on these things that are affecting so many of us and talk about, how it's affected us, where it showed up in our lives. And again, you listening, I want you to be thinking about where this is showing up in your lives. And then also in true Joyful Rebels fashion, we want to come back at you next week with some specific ways that we can counter it. But with all that, the laundry list
Hmm.
of ways that it's potentially showing up, I'm interested, Mom. Again, I want to just lay it out. We you introduced this topic and then, oh, it shows up in a million ways. Oh, okay. I guess this is a thing. So I'm curious for you to share just how this specific topic has shown up with you as someone with such a prolific background in the fitness industry. Also, as being a woman, I feel
Hmm.
like we're hit with all these messaging. So, how does it shown up for you?
Yeah. So let's just say it was a surprise. It was a surprise. So that's why being able to talk about it, and let me share just a little bit today so that maybe you can see yourself in it if you don't think that it's been something that has driven opinion and behavior, because I was surprised at it too. I mean, I was so surprised at it that because I spent 30 years in the fitness industry, and there's a lot of great things happening in there for sure. But I thought I was on the right side of this because every class that I taught, and I have taught, I don't know, tens of thousands,
Mhm.
so many that had anywhere from 5 people in them to hundreds of people in it. And I always felt a huge responsibility to protect the group that was in front of me from just to have it be this experience where everybody felt capable and successful and enjoyed themselves, to instill a love of movement that I have, that I just wanted them to feel that way. So I felt like that is a great basis to start with. And there's a lot of people that I know that are in the industry that start there too. But I also remember being in there and there was a whole lot of, hey, we're gonna do a challenge where we got 6 weeks to the beach. So in order to, be of value to get on a beach in a bathing suit, we're gonna try these, and this is the underlying implication. You're going to get a quick fix here in order to look and feel better about going out on a beach because you overate during the winter and you can't go on a beach that way. I mean, let's think about it. Those kind of the way to um, the quick fixes, the always looking for that, like how do I get there faster, which is then not sustainable. The good or bad foods that would come up, even if that was rebranded into uh, a softer way to mention that, but there would really still be, like you mentioned, Claire, the cheat days. There's all this language of how movement and food would go together and yet not be in a way, especially for women, not user friendly, because our bodies change more so than men. We go through puberty, we have babies, maybe we go through perimenopause and menopause. So our bodies are gonna change. And so does the value that society puts on diet culture and how we show up in it. That's a shape shifting thing. It changes with who's in fashion right now. In the 60s, it was Twiggy, who was somebody that weighed like, true to her name, she was really, really thin and tiny. And then it went to like supermodels and maybe more plastic surgery and the Kardashians. And there's, and I'm not blaming anybody, but just knowing that the line keeps changing. So it does help if we have a better sense of ourselves, because guess what? It's a privilege to get older. It is. And I'm saying this to myself too. It's a privilege to be getting older, and our bodies are going to change. And when we can make peace with more of the things that can make us feel um, heavy inside, and that's an emotional state, a mental state, that we can feel lighter and more joyful as we walk into this privileged world of getting older and partnering with the aging process. And I see diet culture as being a thing that was holding me back. And so let me get to that quickly. It showed up for me in two ways in the last few weeks. One of them was I've been trying to get more protein because I'm lifting more. I said out loud to the universe, I don't want to like just get smaller, which is a part of diet culture. Like the goal is always just to get smaller. Till what end? You just evaporate? I mean, what is the end goal of that? So, in order, when you say you want to get stronger, then that's going to have an effect on the scale. And I wasn't a big scale person, but I did notice when it went up, if I weighed myself every, I don't know, couple of months or whatever, and it started to go up because I'm also getting more lean tissue on me. So then I have this cognitive dissonance. Like, doesn't make sense. Like, my body composition is changing, but it's an old thing that I didn't realize I was valuing, of just getting smaller and weighing less, which was probably in a point in ancient history for me that I'm still attached to at least a little bit. Having clothes in your closet that are sizes too small because someday you're going to get back into it. Like, is that helpful? And if I look at me, I'm saying no. So it showed up for me as I was trying to get more protein and knowing that my body was getting bigger, but yes, in fact, it was getting stronger and it was getting tighter and more capable of doing the things that I wanted to do. But now I'm rubbing up against an old value system, and I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it. Then I had the 1-2 punch of entering back into the space of public speaking, which I hadn't done in a few years. And I was cool with that. But I got a chance to come on and tell a story of my life and how things have been going. And part of it started with emotional neglect as a kid and food scarcity. So I'm thinking, oh, once I realized that, and I'm like, oh, here we go. Now I'm seeing where the basis of that is. And talking about uh, diet culture was in there because I had a job where that was front and center all the time. And even if I thought I was on the right side of it, and hear me, if you're a fitness professional or coach and you're listening right now, you can feel like you're on the right side of it. I don't think that means that we're immune to it. So now I'm no longer teaching groups of people, but I'm left with my own value system with that. And I was a little surprised. I'm not going to lie. I am a little surprised. The girl math of doing this much work, and usually it would be cardiovascular where you're either running or rowing or something that's rhythmic, dancing, that kind of thing, and how many calories you burn, because now we have devices that track that. And I'm just here to tell you, they're not reliable or telling the whole real story of what's happening there. And if you're going to work out, you've got heart and lungs, that's one system. You've got your muscular system, that's another one that we can tax. And then there's flexibility and recovery. But if you really like cardio all the time because it burns this many calories, that's diet culture. And then I'm going to eat this food because I've created this open space and I've burned all these calories. That is a math equation that I have thought too many times. I'm working out now. I consider myself a hybrid athlete, and I think, Claire, you do too. I know you do. We love cardio for cardio, and I love to row. You love to run. I love to row. but I also want, maybe you don't love it. I I really like lifting weights and getting stronger. I know that you have that in common too. If you like to do those two things at different times, even, that you're a hybrid athlete. That's a thing. So I can like them and hold them in, each hand, and not and do that for health reasons, not for aesthetics,
Mhm.
not to get smaller, not to burn calories, not to feed into an old notion of a standard and a value that keeps shifting anyway. Like, I'm not playing the game, or I'm trying not to. I'm trying not to. So as I started looking at the protein thing and the things that I like to eat and how it showed up in my life, scratch the surface on that, you guys. Scratch the surface and see where it can show up in your life, just as an example, as an observer. Be like, huh, that could be looking like that. Have I ever done oh, I'm so full, I'm never eating that again, so I'll restrict the next day? Those are the kinds of things that have shown up that, bottom line, they don't work. And bottom line, they're not helpful. And if you want to live a life, and this is where it's landing in my head and heart, I want to use my gifts to be of service, and I want to have my faculties and be aware of it, and not spend all of this energetic currency worrying about something that is not true and not helpful. So just to be super clear, just because we've thought these things over and over again, they seem really familiar. They're just part of what we do. That does not mean that they're true. It doesn't mean that they're true. I can't say that enough. And I'm saying that for me too. So the net effect is, when I run it, when I spend time just noticing how it shows up in my life, like, how do you eat during the week? How are you working out? How does it look like on the weekends? Is there any conflict? Then just notice it. And then you get a clear picture, because other doors will open and you'll be like, oh, I didn't know it showed up over there. Or I did my best, knowing that, I have two daughters and a son, that we would talk about moving as being super healthy. It's healthy, but it doesn't make you immune from genetic challenges. I think I had the big wake up call when, as an athlete, my entire life, I did a scan and found out I have moderate heart disease. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? I did not outrun any of that. My working out and how I fueled my body, all still part of diet culture, did not prevent me from all known diseases or conditions. It didn't. So it doesn't make, I'm not more virtuous because I spent my time and energy in this space. And I think some of that messaging is still present. And I'm not hating on my brothers and sisters that are in the fitness industry. I'm not. I'm saying we're part of it. And we did our share to do the best that we can. But it feels a whole lot like this. If anybody can remember this image, it'd be like a mom in the 60s with an arm out because you have kids in the front seat. Okay, already that's craziness. But you were holding them back because he didn't have a seatbelt yet. Well meaning, not effective, and actually downright dangerous. So, where are we landing with all that, Claire? Did I miss anything, or did I represent it? Because that's a lot, and I feel very passionately about it. And I hope you guys are hearing that in my delivery.
I love how you talked about, questioning why. Like, because, yeah, the goal is we want to, the quote unquote goal of diet culture is to look a certain way. Most of the time, it's to be smaller. But what we do at Joyful Rebels often is, when we have something that we want, or a goal, or we're trying to determine our core values, you ask why. Why, right? You want to dig deeper. And if you keep asking that question and going down that rabbit hole of getting smaller, well, then what does that mean? Like, small as you age means weaker, frailer. And when we're talking about, you want to saying aging with joy, but also, strength, and being able to continue to do the things that we love to do as long as we can. And so I wanted to point out one of the, since we said that social media can be a harm or one of our exposures to diet culture, I wanted to point out the account called This Woman Lifts. And she kind of got some popularity. She had the idea of training for your old lady body.
Yeah.
I'm doing these things not for how I look now necessarily, but I want to be able to like get up off the toilet when I'm 80 years old. And so I think that when we're asking about the end goal, and again we talked about examining and digging deeper, and mom, I'm the same way as you. Like for so long it was about, scale and number and must be smaller, but when you actually question it, like what? And I love how you talked about like keeping the old clothes. Like at some point, it might have been last year, like I got rid of, I was holding on to like even stuff before my first kid was born, like because someday I'm going to be that size. And then it finally clicked. It's like I don't want to be that size. Like I would have to get rid of my muscles to be that size again. Like the strength is more important to me. And again, why? Because I'm looking to keep and maintain and grow my strength as I age. Like that's where looking to the future, like it is hopeful and exciting and joyful to think I'm going to still be able to do these things as I age. And you do have to drop or let go of, as hard as it is, that idea of wanting to be smaller, because you're right, you're putting on that muscle. It's not going to reflect as huge drops on the scale.
Mm-mm.
And I'll just admit that was a very hard thing for me, a hard pill for me to
Yeah.
swallow. I know you're dealing with it now too. Maybe if you're listening, that's been something that you've had to, sit with or think about, or it's something that's been bugging you. But these are the types of questions and conversations that we want to have with Joyful Rebels, right? Like we want to look at this stuff because we have, I think, similar goals. We've said it a few times already, but that joy as we age, being curious about things like this. So what are we going to do, mom? Next week or next episode, we're going to come back and we'll talk about some tips and some suggestions for how we can specifically, you know, address or tackle that diet culture in our life. And we're not looking for perfection. We're not saying
Mm-mm.
that you're going to listen to the episode and be cured and all of a sudden everything's easy peasy for you. But we listen, we learn, we reflect and examine how it's showing up in our own lives, and then we get some tools to be able to do something about it, to have a
And
choice
I
in
would
the end.
encourage everybody, as you're taking the next few days, whenever you're listening to it, next few days, or if you expand your time because you just want to marinate in this, I like you're going to soak in this for a little bit. I encourage you to sit in the tension of it a little bit, because when you have a realization, you're kind of like, oh, or whether it's the stuff in your closet or the girl math or the whatever that is, and you're kind of like, and you have one of those, I just encourage you to sit in that, because there is some real value in just letting it have some space for a minute. Just let it be there. I'm not shunning it out. I mean, I'm not proud of the stuff that I've done, but I also understand that version of me was doing the best that she could do given what she knew. And so I'm like super cool with oh, that's weird. And that's why we want to bring that stuff up to you. And so the things that we sit in tension with, we encourage you to do that too. And there are plenty of people on social media that have a more balanced view that are trying to break through this as well, and I am encouraged by that. But I love it if we have a relationship with you and you feel like you can relate to some of the things we're saying, whether it's Claire and her demographics or me and mine, all of them are converging on, we love you, we want the best for you. And at some point we have to be curious and think of how things work for us, knowing that our future self, there's a ton of joy, there's a ton of lightness in a way that feels joyful and um, capable. And these are years that have not gotten a good rap in conversations as women in the past. They haven't. So let's advance that conversation a little bit more, and do that by examining ourselves and continuing to live that out, because everybody around us then is going to get an idea what it looks like in word and deed.
Yes, we can be that example for those around us. I love it. Okay, well, for you listening, thank you so much for joining us today. We love when you're a part of these conversations, when we're riffing back and forth on important topics, and can't wait for you to join us next time when we dig in a little bit deeper into diet culture. So until next time, Rebels.